In my most recent Sonic Frontiers video, we talked about a big number of things that I thought were great about the game and some that weren't so great, and my opinion still stands. Sonic Frontiers is a great game and looks as if the qualities will only be going up from here, and that statement holds true for the modding community as well. A big issue I had with Sonic Frontiers was the combat. The whole part of the game that excited me was the combat aspect of it. I absolutely find the combat too easy, even in extreme mode, and the bosses are just a joke. This has likely come down to people getting better at the game as time goes on. You can look at bosses in games like Bayonetta, Sekiro, The Wonderful 101, Thymesia, just to name a few that make bosses look easy once you've had lots of practice, but the Frontiers bosses don't take as much practice as that. Hedgehog May Cry aims to change that. This mod has changed a lot since I last made a video on it, and that was honestly the last time I actually played it. Kirby Crew, the developer of the mod, gave me the opportunity to test out version 7.0, which never came out because it was ready just as the game got officially updated. 8.0 was released when it was ready, and then 9.0 came out like 30 seconds before I started the stream you're seeing in the background. To avoid this intro taking forever, I'll explain the important changes the mod makes as we go along, and just now mention that Hedgehog May Cry isn't the only mod we're using that affects gameplay. The other mods are tougher S ranks and enhanced moveset. Enhanced moveset hasn't got a full release at this point and just makes changes to drop dash. There's other mods installed too, and some active codes. The most notable ones affect jump physics and being able to air trick in cyberspace, but most are just fun cosmetic or lighting mods. Now, I normally say this at the end of the video, but I already know that this video has taken an incredibly long time to make, so any and all support you are willing to give is much appreciated. It would mean a lot to me if you liked the video, let it play out until the end and hit the copy link button. These will all go a long way. So, with all that being said, let's get started. Unlike most of my challenge videos, this one only has the goal of beating all the Guardians. Other than that, it's completely unrestricted. I also forgot to mention in the intro that this is on extreme difficulty, so the one-hit KO and base level stats apply everywhere. The first thing I noticed about the physics changes is that the air boost has been changed to be more like the Force's air boost and almost acts as a full-on extra jump. This is really helpful when you magnet dash in some cases because it sends you way higher. You are also way faster in cyberspace, and this is why I added on the tougher S ranks mod to this. Cyberspace isn't any of the main focuses of this run, but I still wanted to be tough, and some of the later stages ended up being really challenging. The S ranks mod lowers all the times by a further 3 seconds, so stage 1 has a 31-second time limit for the top rank. The first combat area is a lot more difficult than it looks. If you rush right in, you're dead. The soldiers attack a lot faster than before, so don't feel like you can't take your time with it a bit. Get some parries in to try and extend your skill links, which is a feature in the Combat DX part of the mod. A skill link is essentially a parry into a basic attack. Outside of boss fights, the amount of skill links you chain together will increase the amount of quick side loops you can do with one full gauge, up to a maximum of 3. This might not seem like that big a deal, but believe me, when you get to the bosses, you will see how important this is. I didn't chain many skill links, so I was stuck with one use for most of the run. I had the DLC installed, which I once again forgot to disable, so I unlocked skills up to Stomp and Wild Rush. These moves are both really important, as well as Loop Kick, so if you unlock as far as these, you'll be set for most of the bosses. The Triangusi, the Ninja, is faster and has some unused moves restored. The Guardians feel very much like Souls enemies with the implemented changes. Some moves that the ninjas later on in the islands are also present. No, that doesn't. I took this opportunity to demonstrate how the enhanced moveset works. It adds a new feature to drop dash. Basically, if you boost while charging a drop dash in mid-air, you will activate the drop dash in the air and get a huge burst of speed, as well as being able to jump again. It's really fun to use. Even with the buffs put into place, against any tower you can just use momentum to get up high, activate Phantom Rush and just spam the basic combo, while holding the joystick downwards to get a faster finisher. I had took some time to take in the sights with the lighting mod I had installed, beta LUTs. You can find all the mods I used for this playthrough in the description if you want to try it for yourself. 1-2 was quite the stage. Because of the air boost, magnet dashing sends Sonic a lot higher and not as far, but to gain speed, magnet dashing is pretty irrelevant. It has its uses, it can make for some interesting skips, but for base speed, boosting works fine. The S ranks mod reduced the time down to 52 seconds, with which this physics model is actually really easy to get. I took a few more tries to see if I could get it faster. The quickest I could get was down to about 42 seconds. Jeez, the tutorial takes forever to talk about. Asura was the next challenge. As long as you parry before touching a surface after getting hit, you should mostly be fine. If you don't like skipping things, be sure to side loop Asura's legs to grab an extra 2 portal gears for cyberspace. Trying to catch up to Squid was absolutely nuts. You can't constantly side loop for rings, and with me being used to that, naturally I didn't really collect any rings in the open zones. After grabbing infinite boost and only 200 rings for the power boost, I finally managed to get onto the pathway just to die right away. With my impatience getting the better of me, I managed to pull off a really sick jump and connect to the trail high in the sky, just to die instantly again. After finally managing to connect to Squid, after a few tries, I was able to beat them. Note that Grand Slam does quite a bit of damage and is absolutely worth using. Now, anyone with a keen eye so far will notice that I haven't actually spoken to Amy yet, so you're probably wondering how I unlock Grand Slam without her. The actual tips are in the readme text file included with the mod, but basically to unlock Grand Slam, you have to land 10 successful parries in a single fight. You can either leave the fight or win, then you'll unlock the skill. If you lose the fight, you'll need to do it again. I spent a lot of time just pissing about on the island. I attempted an action chain, but I didn't realise that one of the mods I had installed actually nerfed air tricks and was a lot more like the generation style tricks. So I wasn't earning enough points from tricks to make it worthwhile. And I tackled some
Power boost allows the 2D parts of
Cyberspace to try out the physics model. You may also have noticed by now that Sonic goes into the trick state after jumping off a rail, which really annoyed me, and I disabled it later on in the run. Cyberspace is pretty solid with the different physics and is a lot more fun to mess around in. At this point in the run, I had unlocked skills as far as Wild Rush on the left and Quick Psyloop on the right. This is bare minimum enough to survive Kronos, and Quick Psyloop is an absolute must when taking on the bosses. With all the Guardians defeated, we can move on to Giganto. Giganto just scratches the surface when it comes to the difficulty of the fights and the fine-tuning of the strategies. If you've seen my most recent video, a somewhat review of the current state of Frontiers, you'll know that my biggest issue is the bosses and how easy they are to beat for the average player. One thing I wanted to see changed in future updates was the difficulty of the bosses, and make them more innovative. Hedgehog May Cry does that, but it takes it a little bit too far. So, Giganto has some unused attacks restored, as well as some reworked attacks too. One attack that they like to open with is a Roar, which attempts to hit Sonic with a strong sound wave that can be parried for some reason. There's also a lunge attack that's been restored, and it hits way earlier than you might think, which started a big chain of deaths in the run. After parrying the sound wave, I attempted a manual Psyloop since the slowdown gave me a big enough window for it. But it does take practice to pull off. Attacks that you are used to being absolutely busted are suddenly almost useless. Your best bet at dealing damage is getting Phantom Rush charged, since not only do you have a greater attack speed, but your skills deal a lot more damage. Wild Rush is incredibly fast. Don't be afraid to use it excessively. Quick Psyloop can only be used very sparingly. You get one use of it when it's fully charged, and you will then have to charge it again to be able to use it a second time. Successful skill links in regular combat will allow your Quick Psyloop to have more uses, so definitely do this before taking on any boss fights. You'll thank me later. Here's when things start to get interesting. In Phase 2, Giganto will constantly send out projectiles that home in on Sonic, and including the lasers from their back, it will all damage you, even in forced quick time events, like so. What?! What?! There's also just a lot of jankiness in general with the bosses. You could die just from using Psyloop in the second phase. We agreed on some fair patches to implement that makes it less bullshit but still a challenge. Grand Slam would do nothing, and cause you to die. I was losing my mind and I needed a short break. Coming back after applying the patch, I've got a better idea of how to damage Giganto properly. Using Wild Rush and basic attacks can build up Phantom Rush pretty fast, and then a basic attack can get you a quick Psyloop. More often than not, you can use a manual Psyloop, but having the quick gauge charge will let you slam them down whenever you want. Don't let Giganto use too many clap attacks because they'll push you out of bounds eventually and you simply can't fight back. You can counteract this by just letting the clap hit you because it leads into a quick time event instead of doing any damage. Wild Rush spamming during Phantom Rush while Giganto is in a Psyloop is your most effective way of dealing damage. It's just short of an hour's worth of constant death after death. I was finally able to win before applying the patch that makes the easy. Now that we are finally free to move on to another island, my first target is the shark, which I actually managed first try. If you Psyloop the ground where it's going to land after the chase, you should easily be able to keep it airborne while you damage them and not have to chase them again. Strider, on the other hand, was a completely different story. There was a code that I had enabled that allowed crouching on the rails so that you could use momentum to control your speed. Either I suck or it isn't finished yet, but I didn't really like what it was doing. I gave Strider a few more tries after disabling those codes, as well as the one that lets you trick after jumping off a rail, because it's just inconvenient. Strider's main threat is that they have higher HP than vanilla, so there isn't any way you can fully avoid Phase 2. And then Phase 2 is a pain because one mistake and it's all over. I still need to do some cyberspace to grab the first Chaos Emerald, so we head over to 2-1. There is a seemingly excessive amount of momentum, but I had my jump deceleration meter at 0, so it was excessive to me. Remember that you can change these values and find what works for you. I had come back to grab the rings and red rings. I found it weirdly confusing with the physics model since I would end up jumping over masses of the level and missing loads of what I needed. Tank was an interesting fight. Turns out, if you go full frontal assault, it just won't stand a chance at all, but make sure that you use Psyloop to stop it from activating the tornado phase. I was a man on a mission. Keys were still needed, so I rushed over to 2-2 to get some more keys. The height of the air boost is incredibly apparent in this stage, and incredibly useful too, when used correctly. I'm not too sure why I felt the need to grab more than 2 keys because I already had enough, but afterwards I finally found a sumo. Basic combo and Wild Rush is absolutely all you'll need to take sumo down. There's nothing else to say really. Alright, Wyvern Chase. Running speed is the same as normal, but the moment you leave the ground, your physics revert back to the HMC changes. I suck at this part of the game anyway, so regardless of what I did, I was just not cooking. Are you guys ready for a long montage of deaths? I sure as hell wasn't. Now, I'm not even going to sit here and say that the actual boss fight was the problem, because the platforming part still killed me a good few times. But this is where we hit a roadblock. You see, this fight would be no bother at all if it weren't for 2 things. One of them being that the parry timing matters now, which is what I wanted, so I can't complain about that. But the other thing is that if you mess it up, you die. Even when I would finally catch up with Wyvern, because we're all so used to just holding parry, I had no idea about most of the timings for their melee attacks, so it was pure luck if I survived for a good while. This fight took a long time, like I mean a long time. It took me the span of a week to actually beat it, about 6 hours of footage total, maybe just shy of that. So I'm going to talk about the important parts, for example, the changes made to Wyvern that would help you get Quick Psyloop and Phantom Rush a bit faster, applied to my copy of the mod after I had to end it off for the night. Now I went to grind the skill points for Loop Kick off stream, but you see I also couldn't be bothered farming skill points, so I enabled the code to give me infinite, which then got stuck at 999 for the rest of the run. I made up for this by not getting any more skills before I reached Ouranos Island. We planned to get the spin dash unlocked here so I could show it off and have a bit of fun with it. So forgive my silly errors, for I did my best to make up for them. So I came back in the next day with a slightly fresh head and clocked in another 4 fucking hours of attempts. Like, I can't even express how much trouble I had with it. I'll list off all the issues I ran into. First, the platforming. There's a bit of a change to the physics here, and the air boost doesn't actually benefit this section. I died plenty because of it. Second, the parry. It was patched to be slightly boosted in just the Wyvern fight, but you still have to be really accurate with that. It was a continuous problem throughout the fight, but as you get used to the attacks, it becomes like a Souls fight that you've been stuck at for 6 hours straight. Then here's the final problem, you probably won't expect this: the movement. And the lights on the missiles. During daytime lighting, it's really hard to see the missiles flying at you, so I made sure I was fighting it at night so they were easier to see. This didn't fix my issues with the movement, however, and I was convinced that the movement was screwing me the whole time. The missiles were still my most common cause of dying, but after a while I got a solid method of damage down. Use Loop Kick to build up your Phantom Rush, do a few hits into Cyclone Kick, cancel that with Wild Rush, and do that until your Quick Psyloop is ready. Use the Quick Psyloop, and then do Cyclone Kick into Wild Rush constantly to dish out damage. Be prepared for the Wyvern to fight back. Some of the attacks are fiddly and aren't obvious when they damage you. If you can get it down, great. You're doing fantastic. It's going to be even easier when I show you how this plays in the current patch. Supersonic's movement. I can't feel it yet because I've not got control. Holy shit! Okay, oh my god, okay. Okay, no, this is good, this is good. This is really, really good, I like this. A big boost to Sonic's control speed in the chase phases will let you dodge missiles, and you can get as close as you can to parry just one missile to initiate the attack sequences. This is where boys become men. The feeling of power you will have after this fight will turn you from a small widow baby bird into a swole titan killing machine. I am unstoppable! Now, the difference between Ninja and Shinobi is unmatched. You have to make good use of dodging and Quick Psyloop. You can't solely rely on parrying to save you. We can't skip the islands from here on out, so rather than just talking about getting all 140 tokens, I'll just let you know that most of the token collecting is a lot easier. I've still got to get keys as well, so first we go for 3-1. 3-1 is a mad funky stage. Sonic speed boost as well as the new angle on the air boost allows for some good tricks. The stage is really good in vanilla anyway, so it's just expanded out here. But the tougher S ranks mod made the ring requirement really high, and with the physics changes, I don't think getting enough was actually possible. And here's why.
Bitch.
Why can I not get the rings, bro? I just missed them all. So I left that and decided to hunt keys elsewhere. Fortress was a bit strange. Kirby said that all he did for this fight was...
I added a 0 to the end of all the values.
And then I went for 3-2. The stage is over in a flash because of the changes to the rail speeds. I actually did manage all the missions at some point though, and it was fairly straightforward. Next up was Spider. It's efficient enough to manually side-loop the legs, but I prefer to just head-on attack until quick side-loop is full, since the terrain can throw you off a bit. Be careful in the skydiving section if you use codes that reset stomping or air boosting or things like that, since you can end up falling out of the skydiving animation and just drop. I still hate 3-4, but it is so incredibly quick now that it's just essentially vanilla and double speed. The ring requirement is 55, which I'm pretty sure is all the rings that are available to grab in this stage, so enjoy that. But the red stars were really easy, as they are in vanilla. Chaos Island is really fun with this physics model. Some of the tokens that are in small spaces can be grabbed just by jumping straight to them. I dedicated most of this stream solely to collecting tokens. At least I could get more tokens being over here. Okay, no, this is a slight setback. 3-3 was next up, my favourite generation stage, and it felt really similar to Gens with the physics, or at least how I play it. I use a lot of mods when I play Gens, and putting these two stages side by side really shows how close they are in comparison, and it's really fun. 70 rings and 1 minute 18 for an S rank, a decent challenge that took a good few resets to get right. We've got enough keys for all the emeralds, so that's Cyberspace finished with. Not having Slingshot is a wee bit annoying, but with the upped power of the boost and movement in general, you can use a lot more of Sonic's abilities, even Magnet Dash, an actual useful ability in the open zone. No way, that's insane! So now, Shield Escape. If you've ever seen my original HMC video, you'll remember that this part was actually impossible. I was the first tester of this. Kirby, once again, did not test it. You can't drop dash during the chase, but just like the Wyvern's tracks, you have faster movement in the air, but be careful because your speed will completely reset when you touch the ground again. When you reach the shield, take your time to use the platform above it to avoid it. Don't rush it and you'll be fine. And then I hunted down Excavator. It's just the same as the tower from Kronos, a straight rush of damage using Phantom and Wild Rush, and it's down really fast. There's some funky hitbox which will occasionally hit you away, but you know the drill by now. The next big issue was the White Emerald. One of the rails would launch you to the other side of the island. Normally in this situation I would turn off the mod just so I could get past, but I was determined not to this time. The path to the red emerald was a lot of fun to do as well as the yellow, so once I had hunted all 140 emeralds... Boxes was nice. I like how quickly you can smash between them all, but it does lead to lots of backtracking to get the parts. I did my best to choose the boxes that were bunched up a lot because that resulted in less backtracking. Sonic, what are you doing with that? Bridge was funky. I did manage to break the process a couple of times, but the reduced homing attack delay makes this part a lot easier at certain bits. When it decides to work, obviously. Sonic, seriously stop, this is not okay. Pinball hasn't changed a bit. I wonder if this is going to change in Update 3, and honestly, I really hope it does. I don't mind this part of the game, but I know what you're thinking. You just want to see me fight the knight. You can survive the approach tonight by mashing parries during the movement, and just by being quick and nimble during the slam attack. Using the slope behind the spawn point is a good way to get high up and avoid the attacks much easier. But then we run into a lot of issues in the actual fight. You think you can just Psyloop Knight and deal tons of damage that way? No, we don't do that here. Your most reliable method of damage to start out is slamming the shield back into him. Grand Slams also do great damage, but just using these two moves won't get you anywhere. Here's another issue, the ring count. 200 isn't enough. You can grab some extras if you use a skill link during the fight, but skill links during bosses won't net you any extra quick Psyloops. It doesn't matter because they aren't too useful anyway. You will also notice the speed of the shield is now absolutely deranged. The acceleration rate is still slow, so if the knight stops you, you'll probably struggle to get back on track, but the damage you are rewarded with is worth it. It's also worthwhile to use Phantom Rush on the knight normally after the shield crash, or parry for the extra damage. Trust me, it pays off. And the speed of the shield is absolutely insane in phase 2 as well. You will probably find yourself relying on the extra damage from Phantom Rush to avoid this as much as you can. You also don't have too much time to react to Knight's movement. He goes really fast, so your aim has to be on point. If you hadn't figured it out yet, I died a lot in this fight too. Not nearly as much as Wyvern beat me, but I do think the Knight was more difficult. Wyvern is still, at the end of the day, land parries and damage accordingly. It's just more difficult. Knight has a whole different strategy this time around, and after over an hour of death after death after death and rethinking the strategy, we finally got him. Rhea looked absolutely beautiful with the lighting mods. Some of the platforming was naturally more difficult with the mod changes, and some of it was a lot easier. But on the Rhea island front, did I actually just say Rhea? There's nothing else to really talk about. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I said I would use the spin dash on the final island. So here we are. I wasn't going to sit and grind all the action chains, so I just activated the spin dash in the mod loader codes. And oh my god, it is so much fun to use in this mod. It has boosted starting speed and much stronger air movement. It's peak, you will love it. The start of Ouranos was the end of a stream, so I finished up by doing some fishing, which I wasted the tokens from by getting portal gears. I could only afford 2, and I feel like the memory tokens I could have gotten would have been more valuable, even if it was just 4. And 1 week later, we're back on the grind. There's always lots to do in Ouranos, but we start off by hitting 4-1. I like this stage a ton already, and it's been nothing short of improved in this mod. I used a skip I learned off of studying ILs from speedrun.com to cut away the tower and the skateboarding part for the S rank time, which was made really easy. But when going for the red rings and the 200 something rings, it requires a lot of backtracking and also discovering that there's no skateboard at the end. Grabbing the rings is a lot easier in this case. Now, by the time this video releases, I reckon that the soldiers will have had their HP nerfed, but if not, then don't even bother fighting them. They aren't worth anything and take way too long to die. You'll just be gaining height over time as if you're playing Bayonetta. Ghost is surprisingly a lot easier with the new physics model. Combat doesn't affect this fight, so if you want to abuse the movement in any way that you want, don't be afraid to do so. Moving on to Kunoichi, the amount of health that this thing has is actually unsettling. I personally think an HP value of 18,000 does nothing for this fight. The ninjas don't have enough variety of attacks for this to mean anything. I definitely found it to be a fun challenge, but for now I decided to leave the fight. Trying to rush down as many guardians as I could, I went for Red Pillar afterwards. Just like the other towers so far, as long as you can consistently stay airborne and survive any knockback, you won't have any issues with this. Caterpillar was an interesting one. I actually did manage it first try, but it took me a minute to figure out the best approach. Your lock onto the boss seems to break a lot, which causes Phantom Rush to break and also Quick Psyloop to break. It seemed most effective to use Cyclone Kick to fill Quick Psyloop and then Phantom and Wild Rush in between using Quick Psyloop to keep Caterpillar on its back. This lets me avoid doing the rail segment repeatedly, which, to be honest, is a lot more annoying in HMC than it is in vanilla. 4-6 is hilarious, and here's why.
Why is his legs moving like that, bro? What the fuck? Anyway. I fucking knew that was gonna happen.
Having Sonic move at uncontrollable speeds is so much fun. It takes me back to the Unleashed and Generations days of just running guns blazing all over the place. I was flying around parts of the stage without a care in the world, definitely being ungrateful for how hard it was to make it this far. After managing the S rank, I did more exploring in this stage than any other stage in the history of Sonic, and yes, that includes Arid Sands Night. I went for 4-8 afterwards. The S rank time was a mere 20 seconds, the lowest out of any stage, so I went for that first. But watching the footage back, I realised that the way I was doing the very last part was just making it so difficult for me. Should have just went straight for the button, but nah. So now the rings. The stage wanted 35, and there's only 40 in the stage, so with the correct routing, I was able to get those on the actual first attempt.
Right, I'm gonna save here.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rage quit. I've had enough of this game. I was also really loving 4-4. The time limit of 147 is pretty generous, but it was a really fun stage to learn. It's chaotic, just like 4-6, and feels really rewarding to beat, as well as exploring for the 270 rings required for the remaining keys. 4-4 is just the best stage, and nothing is going to change that. I gave Master Ninja a few tries, but there was no hope. 18,000 HP with that much movement, it simply was not going to happen. So I collected some tokens and headed over to 4-5. I can't say I liked this stage as much as I have the others, but it was still good. Ouranos has the best stages, but I think this one was a bit more on the lower tier of enjoyment. None of the key missions are too difficult here. And then I did this one map challenge because with the enhanced drop dash, it's hilariously easy.
You just wanna see a real funny?
Yeah, what's a real funny?
They don't know about to cook. Watch this fucking world record shit right here.
gamer.
Gaming.
Gaming without the Ming.
Gay.
We're in the final phase of the game now, with the final changes being made to the mod before I finish the game. With the main change being that the health of the Master Ninja and Kunoichi have been taken down from 18,000 to 11,000. And believe me, it was still really tough to beat. With the ninjas having really similar movesets, I decided to just beat the Master Ninja because, well, trying to basically do this twice was not ideal. So, Master Ninja, how was it? Really fucking hard. Let me go through everything. First, the laser attack. They will hit out with this randomly, so you basically always need to be ready for it. The next one is the varying clone attacks. I found the best way to avoid this was to simply run. You can spin dash or boost to keep away from it, but the base boost level won't last the full amount of time that the attack does. You can outrun it using momentum if you run out. When the ninja does basic attacks, simply keep out their way. They will pause briefly afterwards, so use a manual silent while you have the chance. Do this while they're holding a parry too. You'll know they're doing this when they hold their arms back and have a slight purple aura. They can't defend a silent with a parry, and it fully charges your Phantom Rush. I never realised how effective dodging is until this fight either. Dodging leads right into a Wild Rush, and this starts a combo nice and easily too. Your combos won't last very long if the ninja isn't stunned, and they will probably just hit you instantly. Parrying isn't actually too useful unless you're desperate to land a Grand Slam. The ninja isn't slowed down by the effects of a parry anyway, and this is apparent in the clone attack during the second phase, which is normally so easy to avoid by using a parry. Run around again until all the ninjas have attacked, and then side loop the last one. But overall, don't try and attack when the ninja is standing, don't get greedy because they aren't stunned for long, use recovery smash when you can, and if you get hit, try and boost while you're still in the air to avoid the damage. You can also magnet dash away if you don't understand how to strategically avoid their attacks. And after a surprising amount of attempts at this, I won. I was determined that this was possible without any further changes, and it was. Like I mentioned earlier, I decided against fighting Kunoichi because it's more or less the same fight. Kirby gave me a free pass to skip it. There were still some memory tokens left. I got a few by exploring, and the remainder by cooking for them. And now, there's one last fight. A fight that I have hyped up a lot in this mod, because believe me, it's a lot better than the vanilla version. Oh, by the way, if you've never attempted Supreme on this mod, or never seen it, I would recommend trying it yourself if you can. It's totally up to you, stay if you want, it helps the channel, but I don't blame you if you want to try it out for yourself first. Okay, now on to the fight. Here's why Supreme is great. You're used to Supreme just standing there, right? Nah, not today, you'll get rushed instantly. Supreme's unused attacks are restored here, and I mean all of them. Lots of Giganto's moves are here, and they are just insane. The rush and the chomp attacks are used in the first phase quite commonly, but unlike Giganto, the chomp won't push you out of bounds and stop you from attacking. And then, Supreme activates their defenses. And rather than waiting for you to break one before using their projectile attack, they'll just do it anyway. Constantly. And if you can't avoid it, well, GG's, you'll die. Your goal is to break all the defenses, since Supreme will pretty much be invincible until you've got them all. Then they'll be vulnerable to Quick Silent, Grand Slam, Phantom Rush, anything you want. Second phase starts, and they just go crazy with the defenses. Most of the barebone attacks are the same, but you will be getting tossed around like a fucking ragdoll if any of the projectiles hit you. Those projectiles don't kill you, but they won't find it hard to shoot you with the missiles if you're out of control. And then, entering the final phase, you have 4 quick time events to react to, instead of 1, some of which you will die to if you mess up once. And after all that, I beat Supreme in 2 tries. Now this wasn't intentional. Kirby mentioned that Supreme wasn't tested properly, but is going to make the changes to Supreme's HP in the coming updates. I'm excited to see where this mod goes in update 3 of the game. But now, we're at the end of the run, beating the entirety of Hedgehog May Cry on extreme difficulty, something that not even the developer thought would be possible. And I think with that, I can declare myself as the king of Sonic Frontiers! Nothing is different about the end, but what they said to me wasn't very nice. This video took an incredibly long time to make, so any and all support is much appreciated. I rushed to get this video out before update 3, so I'm hoping this hasn't been a hindrance on quality for you guys. Leave a like if you enjoyed and drop a comment down below if you want, I love reading them, and subscribe for more content like this. I will be doing more challenge runs in update 3, so you've got that to look forward to. Sorry, I cannot take this Giga Chad model seriously. I'm just gonna let Voltron take it from here. If you want to go the extra mile and support me directly, you can join the channel as a member for just £2.99 a month. I'm a new YouTube partner as of now, so I don't have too much to offer other than exclusive emojis to use here. But as we grow, I'll have much more to offer. To the current channel members, you know who you are, and thank you very much. You can also support me by following me over on Twitch, which I will leave in the description, or directly support me on there by subscribing for £3.99 a month. I can offer you a lot more over there if that's your preference. I also want to give my thanks to Miles Workshop, Silent Dreams, and Zakuyo. Zakuyo? I think Zakuyo, I hope I pronounced that right, sorry if I butchered it, for their permission to use their remixes of Undefeatable and I'm Here, Break Through It All, and the completely original track Dimensions. I've put all their links in the description for you to check them out. They make amazing tracks that you will not regret listening to. I won't be making any more videos on Frontiers until Update 3 is out. Not that it's very far away now, so unless they don't have an option to play the classic story after the update, this will be my final video on the classic story. This story jump-started my journey here, and I will forever be grateful for it. As always, my name is Snack, and I will see you in the next one.